Yeah, here we go, Edwin Sammon of Knowledge. This is the show, Edwin Sammon of Knowledge podcast. Hey, Salmon Skins, and welcome to another episode of Edwin Sammon of Knowledge. It's been a while, it's been a couple of weeks. I haven't been on the air, so to speak, even though the air is the internet cloud, which is not air, nor is it a cloud, nor is it vapor. It's an imaginary thing. But look, I haven't been there. I haven't been in the imaginary sphere with extra S's. And that's simply because, as some of you may know, maybe you've heard on the block, the word on the street, that I haven't really been on that much lately, is that I've had a baby. Now, I had help. Cara definitely helped when it came to making little baby Luke. So Luke Patrick Sammon was born on Wednesday, the 2nd of June, a 21, and he was 7 pounds and 2 ounces. Now, technically, his due date was the 12th of June, so he's only literally a week fully cooked, fully baked, a fully baked baby. How do you know when a baby is fully baked? The skewer comes out clean. What's that? I've been cancelled for suggesting that you put a skewer in a baby. Of course, don't do that. But then again, I've only been at this for just over 2 weeks, so I don't know what I'm doing. Now, we're having a great time. We've decided to not sleep very much. It's a choice that we've made. And luckily, Luke is very on board with that choice by waking up every couple of hours and demanding to be fed. Much like a horrible flatmate that you might have that you think is sound, but then they're knocking on your door asking you to go down and make them a bowl of cornflakes that they can't make themselves. Like, I'd make it myself, but I can't get out of my onesie. And I don't even know how I got to your door. I can't even stand up. I can't even turn over at this point in my development. In fact, I'm not sure who you are because I can't see 8 inches in front of me or beyond that. These are all the things that I've learned about newborn babies. Now, this episode is going to be a lot of baby chat, but hey, no, don't turn that dial. It's funny. Let me tell you the story. So basically, Luke has been breech for pretty much the entire pregnancy. And if you don't know what breech is, it basically means that he's been wearing a tiny pair of tweed trousers or breeches. And he's been sort of periodically pulling them down and mooning me from inside the womb. And he's had his little legs all sort of tucked up. And occasionally he's had his legs pressing down on Cara's bladder, which meant that she'd been up and down to the bathroom the whole time. And it's kind of the sort of thing where when you have a breech baby, they usually, for reasons of safety's sake, recommend that you have a cesarean section named after the actor Cesar Romero, who played the Joker in the 1960s Batman movies. And also, he was a pioneering surgeon, and he invented that. He was like, hey, why not take it out of the sunroof instead of moving it out the boot or whatever the vagina is in this car analogy. Look, I'm very tired. So excuse me if none of this makes sense, but I'm trying to recall it. It's funny how I never realized that not only are you like awake a lot of the time and up very early and up several times during the night, but the day actually flies because when he sleeps, it's the daytime, and sometimes you might take like a little nap, but you take that opportunity to do your jobs, to, put your ham in the slow cooker and just leave it there, and to, hoover the house, do a bit of cleaning, do a bit of admin, do a bit of writing. I haven't had much time for podcasting. Like, I was podcasting Yesterday, I was putting up some extra bonus content on my Patreon, which you can access if you go to Edwin Sammon of Knowledge on Patreon. And I was putting up a couple of old gigs are up there. My book that I'm writing, I think there's about 16 chapters up so far, which is maybe half the book. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing that. It's the first draft, basically, that I'm putting up for free instead of sending it out to publishers and trying to get it published. But I will be doing that. But look, one thing at a time. Let's get this baby past its 6-week threshold where it gets into some kind of a routine. And Luke has been he's been pretty good. He's been, he only screams when he wants to be fed and changed and held. So apart from those times, which is 98% of the time that he is conscious, he's been pretty good. He's been pretty chill. But no, we haven't had many issues. But yeah, he was breech, which means obviously that his head should be facing the exit doors. But unfortunately, his feet were. So there is the danger that in coming out that he will not make it. And we didn't want that to happen. We wanted Luke to get here. So we had the kind of nice option, although there are complications to it. Obviously, there's complications with any kind of surgery. But the nice thing was we knew the day. We had a date and a time. And we just, went in and got prepared. And I had to wait until like an hour beforehand, which is ridiculous because at the same time, and I know it's like restrictions with COVID and whatnot, and there have been far, far worse stories of fathers having to wait in the car park while their partners are going through something very serious and life-threatening. And we thankfully did not have that experience. But at the same time, as I couldn't be in a room with just Cara until such a time as we were going to the theatre and she was having her epidural, I could, go into a Centra and queue with 7 people, one of whom was a belligerent drunk who I'm guessing had little to no regard for health and safety protocols and was probably carrying the Rona, my Corona. And I ended up talking to Cara, finding out what room she was in, and I was standing in the car park and we're both on our phones looking at each other with like a slight delay. So it's like when you're at a rock concert and you're looking at the big screen, but it's like a couple of seconds behind. It was exactly like that. It was like I was at a Bruce Springsteen concert, but I was talking to Bruce on stage and he was going in to have a baby. That's what it felt like. And then we went up, Cara put her gown on, and we're just waiting around. And then there were a couple of sort of emergency pregnancies. Someone had a baby in the car park while Cara was there before I got there. And we were supposed to go in around 12, and I got pushed back to 1, I got pushed back to 2, and then eventually at 3 o'clock we went up. We're sitting in a room, and then Cara goes down and she's getting her epidural, and then I'm brought in because she's awake the whole time. And then they make the incision, and about 10 minutes later, baby Luke came out. So my job was, and they have like the kind of a screen up in front of her so we don't see what's going on. And it's a weird sensation. Cara described it as it's like having someone, if you were a washing machine, a sentient washing machine, and someone was rummaging around in the wet wash looking for a particular pair of socks. And that's kind of what it felt like, which is kind of, weird, like not painful, but sort of strangely, slightly unpleasant. So then I'm basically chatting to Cara, just trying to sort of distract her and saying, we're going to meet Luke now any minute. And how are you getting on? And do you know what? I was thinking of rewatching The Irishman again because I'm not too sure how much of a masterpiece it is. And I was just trying to, make her feel slightly calm about having a tiny human pulled out of her abdomen slash womb. That's what they did. And then all of a sudden, that noise, which in medical terms means the baby has popped. No, all of a sudden, Luke is there in front of us. They lift him up, and he's got his umbilical cord obviously still attached, and he's red, and he's crying, and he's covered in meniscus, I think is the term, this kind of like white gunk. And I just sort of looked at him, and I could see the kind of blood still flowing from the umbilical cord. And I looked at his hands, and I looked at his feet, looked at his face. Face looked fine. Crying, but, 2 eyes, nose, ears, mouth. Looked at his hands, looked at his feet, looked at his penis. Thought his balls looked kind of big. I was like, is that a good thing? I hope so. I assume it is. And all the kind of white stuff on him. He kind of looked like, when you go into, it's like a Sunday morning, you've been on the beer the Saturday night, you get up, you're hungover, and you're like, oh God, I want to get a breakfast roll. But it's like 2:00, 2:30, and you're like, oh, well, I'll go into the garage, maybe they'll have something left. And they have some sausages, they've got like one hash brown, half a black pudding and a white pudding. And then they have like 2 or 3 rashers, and they're in a little Tupperware container. And they've been there for a while, and they got those kind of like white bits on them. And you're like, oh yeah, stick them in the microwave. That's kind of how Luke looked, complexion-wise. So they bring him off, and they clean him. And I can hear him kind of crying in the next room. And I'm saying to Cara, it's okay. He's crying. He's fine. He's kicking it. He's like, hey, I'm here. What's going on? And he really does have, like all babies do, have that energy of someone who's been kicked out of a pub an hour before they thought they were going to be kicked out of the pub. Like they thought there was a late license going on, and they were there, and they could order drinks till 2 a.m. But suddenly it's like 12:30, and they're like, what, the pub? I can't order a drink, and you're kicking us out. He had this sort of belligerent, what the fuck are you at kind of thing, put me back in kind of vibe to him. So like a little tiny angry drunk. And then he was brought over to us, and he got skin on skin with Cara, and we're looking at him, and it's kind of unbelievable. And the radio is playing, Elton John. And the song is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which you all know. When are you gonna come down? When are you gonna land? And they're sewing Cara back up, stitching her back up, while we're having skin on skin. And it was funny because we're having this, moment where we're meeting our son Luke for the first time, and Cara's getting skin on skin, and I'm like looking at his hands and sort of looking at him going, I can't believe this little man is ours. And meanwhile, they're having a sort of a casual chat while they're sewing Cara up, and I hear one of the surgeons going, yeah, I never really was into Elton John that much. And then they're talking about, have you seen that film Rocket Man? It's on Netflix now. It's very good. I never realized that he didn't write his own songs. And there's a tiny part of my brain which wanted to kind of stick my head out and go, well, actually, he does write the music. It's just he doesn't write the lyrics until Bernie Taupin came around. I'm surprised you didn't get that from the movie that you say you just watched. Anyway, I'm just going to get back to my son now. But I let it slide. I let my mansplaining tendencies not get the better of me in that instance. And then after about 10 minutes of skin on skin, I was asked to leave. They said, sir, you can't be in here. This is for mothers only. And no, I was brought to the recovery room, and I opened up my shirt, and I laid little baby Luke on me, and was wearing a little blue woolly hat, keep him warm, because he can't regulate his own body temperature. Bloody useless baby. And he just lay on me for a bit, and then Cara came in, and I took a picture of Luke and Cara, and Cara looks absolutely delighted in it because she was off her tits on morphine, which was great because she spent a long time, not drinking, and there were some times where you could use a drink when you have a tiny human growing inside you, hiccuping inside you, feeding inside you. And it was a little bit difficult when, of course, because the pubs were still closed at that point, so I couldn't go wet the baby's head, as they say. I couldn't go have a pint in a pub, which was grand. I came home, I had like bacon and eggs because that's all there was to eat. I had a couple of cans of Guinness and kind of video called Cara because the visiting hours, you see, were only 2:30 to 5. So by the time he was born and we got back to the ward, I had about 10 minutes. And then the next couple of days, because Cara had to stay in, obviously because she had a C-section, which is a major surgery. And I was only in for, basically I'd go in and let her sleep. And I'd look after Luke. And then she'd wake up and I'd basically hide in the toilets until security kicked me out. No, I'd basically just wait and kind of have my runners on. Because I'd be lying in the bed to take your runners off, because that's just manners, even if it's a hospital. And the security man would come in just to make sure everyone was gone. And then the next day I'd come and queue up with the other fathers. It was 2 o'clock, 2 to 5. See, I'm very sleep deprived. I can't even remember what times I went into the hospital at. I'm so sleep deprived that the other day I picked up my sunglasses because the weather's been nice and sunny. Picked them up and was staring at them going, what do I do with these? Something to do with my head. Do I put them on top of my head? It's on my head anyway. I know it's in that general area. And then I finally figured it out. But you get this kind of weird adrenaline. You get this, you get these lovely little... You get to smell a baby all the time. And he's very, very cute. He's objectively very, very cute. It is, sometimes people's babies come out and they look like Quatu in Total Recall. And you're just expecting them to say, Quaid, start the reactor, Quaid. So maybe Luke's first words will be, open your mind, which would be kind of crazy. Give these people air. So, he was very cute little button nose, cute little ears. He's got a little dent at the top of one of his ears, which is the exception that proves that he's the cutest baby. And the midwives all said he was cute. And I said to Cara, that means he's definitely cute for reals, because they see babies all the time. And, they don't have to say that. And I don't think they say it to... They'd say, there's your baby. Or, oh, he's a little fighter. Or she's a little princess or something. They'd apply terms like that. But they genuinely were saying, he's cute. What a cute baby. And doing double takes. And one midwife, I had him out in the corridor, and she was walking, and she walked into a wall because she was like rubbernecking, going, oh my God, that's the cutest baby I've ever seen. Some of these things may have happened, and some of them may not. But no, he's lovely little button nose, little chin, and he stretches his neck. He's starting now, because he's like 18 days old, and he's starting to stretch his neck a bit. And when he stretches his neck, I'm kind of going, oh, he's got a really long neck, but it's seems kind of narrow. And when he does that, he kind of looks like E.T. the extraterrestrial, But if ET the extraterrestrial found like really good face cream that got rid of every single wrinkle, or he looks like Baby Yoda if he didn't have green skin and massive ears, like Baby Yoda, a pink Baby Yoda with small ears. I've just described every baby there, not just my own child, but every baby. And then came the day where we were taking him home. And of course, we have a car seat, and courtesy of my brother Julian and my sister-in-law Sinead. Thank you both. Much appreciated. A very practical present. And we're getting so many clothes. Like he's basically like Cher or Madonna. He's just so many Beyonce. So many costume changes. I don't know what the male equivalent of who's a male. Freddie Mercury? No, he maybe only had 2 costume changes. Is there a male singer performer who had a lot of costume changes in their shows? I don't know. Neil Diamond? No, probably not. Anyway, he's got more clothes than I have, which is fine because we get to put like 3 or 4 different costumes on him per day. And I found a lot of these things that they have for children, these car seats, and Cara bought a nappy disposal system. Now, what is a nappy disposal system? I hear you ask. Some of you may be thinking, Ed, isn't that just a bin? And you know what? You're half right, because it is a bin, but it's a bin with a twist, quite literally a twist. It is a bin where the bags are kind of loaded in a rim in the top, and you push the nappy down, and then you turn a thing and it kind of twists around it, and then you close it and it pushes it down. So you end up with, and the bins have this kind of scent on it, so it kind of smells like something you'd like a bin in a hospital, that kind of medicinal smell. So you don't get the smell of pooey shit or pissy wee. Both those things. And I thought it was slightly, I was like, is that really necessary? I mean, they're just selling you an upmarket bin, but it's actually great. And the funny thing is, when you empty it, and we've emptied it a couple of times, because that's the miracle of something so small emitting so much waste, because they're constantly feeding. Like Luke is constantly feeding right now. And, he's got some poops, and he's very flatulent as well, which is just hilarious. And there was one incident I have an incident sheet. We haven't had many incidents regarding changing. You have to keep an eye out on his penis, because urine comes out of there, and I kind of have the nappy in my hand, the used nappy, cupping the bottom of it. So then if he does piss, I can sort of move in and catch it like a baseball player catching a ball in his catcher's mitt. And there's only been one time where there's a couple of times where he's pooed. He had his very first poo on his second day, and it's this kind of green, but it's like, it actually looked like if you get like oil paint, and you get like a really dark green oil paint and you squeeze it out, where it's got a very thin layer of kind of black on it, because the first poos that babies have are black poos. And that's because, here's a bit of knowledge for you, 24 minutes into the podcast. The black poo is because babies are covered in a layer of hair, and then that layer is eaten by them before, in the lead up to them coming out of the womb. And then that's the first shit that they have. They shit out their own kind of fur, but it's not like, they're not like Chewbacca. It's like a kind of a thin, downy fur. So he's only shit on me once, basically, is what I'm saying. Or no, twice. That time, and then like last week, I was changing his nappy, and this sort of projectile poo shot across the bow of the changing table and onto my hand. And then you have to sort of clean your hand, watch his legs, make sure he doesn't piss, and it's quite the juggling act, and that's usually when you have to call in reinforcements. So, and then you're kind of laughing at the fact that it takes two grown adults to change one tiny human. And what was I getting at? So, oh yeah, the nappy disposal system. So it basically it twists it. You twist it round, so it kind of twists it, keeps every nappy in place. But when you open it, then it looks like in a cartoon when a python eats a bunch of coconuts. It kind of looks like that. It kind of looks like the human centipede, but with shitty baby nappies. And it just made me laugh the first time. Like, just a huge amount of poops. And in some ways, it's wasteful. And I know, look, the environment's in a hell of a state. And we sort of very briefly considered getting the reusable nappies and being all sort of, right on and environmentally friendly, guys. But to be honest, you couldn't be fucking arsed doing that, because it is quite the slog to be washing those and, trying to do the normal things that you normally do in a day. Like podcasting, like this podcast, I started it last night and I'm finishing it now. Today, Father's Day, my first Father's Day, my first time I'm celebrating this made up bullshit holiday. And, of course, I'll treat Cara like the wonderful mother that she is on Mother's Day, but she's a wonderful mother every day. She's absolutely killing it. She's had some issues with him latching on for the breastfeeding, because we endorse breastfeeding. This podcast is not sponsored by breastfeeding, but it was a little bit difficult at times, and you have to be aware that you're very tired, and when you get very tired and you have a lack of sleep, you get kind of emotional. Like, I got kind of emotional when he sort of peed on his clothes after I changed him. He got a little bit of pee, and I was like, better change those clothes. And initially, he hated being naked. He would scream his head off whenever you take all of his clothes off. And I which did make sense to me, because he was naked in the womb the whole time. Like, he didn't come out in a pair of breeches, a pair of trousers, or dungarees, or a hazmat suit, because he'd heard about the pandemic. And he was just screaming his head off. But the day we came out, see, I'm rambling, I'm going off topic, of course. But look, it's all baby chat, and look, I hope this isn't incredibly boring to you. I know for some people who might not want babies, might have decided not to have babies, and are happy with a dog or a cat or nothing, and that's fine. I respect your choice, and I respect the fact that you don't necessarily want to hear about my child. But look, this is my podcast. You're listening to it. If you've been listening to it this long, you know me by now. And I'll talk about something else in the next episode. But I just want to get all the baby stuff out there. Just spew it all out there, much like a poo out of a baby's bum. And then I'll never speak of Luke ever again. But just indulge me this one time. And look, it's not even a conversation. You're just listening to my stories. But I do understand that, like, some people don't want kids. Some people want kids but can't have them. And that's very stressful and very upsetting for them to hear about other people's kids. And, you got to be aware of that. You got to think of other people's situations. And also, in the same way that not everyone wants to listen to me wax lyrical about The Irishman. Not that I do, but not that much. And for the same reasons, people don't want to hear about kids. And it's just like, yeah, you're not the first person ever to have a child, but I am the first person ever to have a perfect child. No, look, nobody's perfect, not even me. In fact, Luke has hip dysplasia, which comes from him being breech. I mean, there's one criticism of him. He couldn't get into the quote-unquote normal position. Not to say that any other position is abnormal. And because of that, his legs were kind of up and raised, and he tends to sleep in that position when he's on your chest, the position he was in utero. And because of that, he's got a misalignment in his left hip, so he's in a little harness for like 6 weeks, which makes nappy changing slightly difficult. You have to go underneath the harness, so it puts him in a frog position. So then the ball in his hip and in his ball and socket hip joint, because that's the way your hip is designed. Look it up look at a biology book or Google it if you can't find your secondary school biology books. So hopefully it'll be fine. It usually does right itself. I can keep you informed about that, but it's not a serious thing. That's it. Like there's nothing. You have to put these things in perspective. There's nothing serious, and also you have to put in perspective the fact that you're talking about your child to someone who maybe doesn't want to fucking hear about it. But look, I'm just talking about me and how I feel, and the overwhelming sense of protectiveness that I felt almost immediately. Because when we left the hospital and we were standing outside, and because Cara can't drive and I'm still learning how to drive, her father Tom came in to pick us up. So we're waiting for Tom to come in. And while we're waiting, standing outside the hospital, a man, father, no doubt, was walking to go into the hospital, and let's just say he was a little disheveled. He was wearing a grey tracksuit, which is a red flag. There's been a lot of grey tracksuit wearing youths around Dublin city centre ever since the pubs reopened, causing havoc and making waiters do roundhouse kicks. Probably more on that on an extra pod later on. But for now, I just want to talk about this one potentially scumbaggish man who was going in. He had his mask, a disposable mask around his neck, and he looked a bit. He was kind of one of those guys who I'd say he was 32, but he looked 45, and he just looked a bit dangerous and possibly infected with coronavirus. And babies are very, very vulnerable up until their 6-week period. They're susceptible to all kinds of illnesses. If someone has a cold sore, that can be very, very bad for a baby. So we're very aware of not letting anyone hold them unless they've been A, fully vaccinated, and B, we know where they've been. So really only his grandparents have held him, and obviously his parents. But I saw this guy, and my hand, my grip tightened around the baby carrier. I nearly said baby mobile, but that's what Baby Man, the superhero, drives. To the baby mobile, Baby Man, a billionaire playboy who never grew up, a billionaire play baby, I suppose. This is my brain shutting down. So my grip tightened on the car seat handle. That's what it is. It's a car seat. And I was fully prepared to kill this man. I was like, okay, I may have to kill this man to defend my wife and child. And it was an instinctual thing. It was almost like, if I was an animal that was not a human and capable of speech, I probably would have emitted some sort of grunt or bark, which would have said, get the fuck away from my wife and child, please. And you kind of, I've never been a parent before. This is my first child. And everyone who has their first child, doesn't know what they're doing. You can get advice from people, and people tend to give you advice. And, people who have had numerous kids, like Cara's dad, my dad. But then they also say, it's been so long ago, I can't remember what to do. And also they get all the good stuff where Luke falls asleep on Tom, and if he needs to be changed or fed, starts crying, it's like, here, take him. I don't want this part of it. I only want the good stuff. So you have either your parents who don't really want to give you advice or have forgotten how to raise children. It's like as soon as you were able to take care of yourselves, we just kind of forgot all that stuff. Or you have people who have had kids for a couple of months and therefore are absolute experts. But the truth of the matter is that every child is different and every parent is different. And my advice to new parents would be to look after each other. And myself and Cara, have some nights we've been taking it in shifts where we've been sleeping in the spare room, the nursery room, and for a couple of hours and giving him feeds, and then Cara will take over. And that's been kind of working out fairly well. And I'm a night owl, so I don't mind being up late, even if it's to feed a crying baby and change a pooey nappy, because, he does sleep on my shoulder, and I can't really podcast or do some work. I can do some research, which leads to writing. Yeah, it's all part of the process. But usually I just watch some movies, which I enjoy doing, and I'll enjoy watching movies with my little boy Luke when he gets old enough. I'm a little bit disappointed in him. Now, when he was in the womb, he really used to kick his feet around to Queen, a big Queen fan. Specifically, I Want to Break Free, which I guess the lyrics resonated with him at that point in his very brief existence. And I was playing some Radiohead, because I'm a big Radiohead fan, and he got a bit whiny, much like some people claim Radiohead are, but they're not. And I was like, what, Luke, come on. So he likes Queen, and I think he likes Taylor Swift as well. So, he takes after his mother in that sense. Not that I don't like Taylor Swift, but, I love Radiohead. It would be nice if he liked them, but maybe in time. And you don't want to force these things on him. Like, here, like this, because then they'll go, oh, shut up, Dad, I don't want to like it. And I'll be like, come on, son, you're 16 now. You should be able to like things. No, I'm going up to Space Club. Space Club? Yeah, Space Club. Is that the best you could come up with off the top of your head? Shut up, I'm sleep deprived. You're sleep deprived? No, you are. The man improv this. Look, I'm going up to play with my friends on the moon. Oh, right, because the moon is a place where people go to hang out now in the future when you're a teenage boy. Yeah, that's what's going on. Why are you talking like that? Because I'm a teenager and this is how I talk. You've got very much a culty accent. Very much a culty accent? Yes, don't mock your father. Don't talk about yourself in the third person. Right, okay, listen, I'm going to go and listen to my old Radiohead albums on Blu-ray. Because that's the only format I like now. You never listen to albums on Blu-ray. How do you know that? We learned about it in history class. You learned about Blu-rays in history class? Yeah. Seems unlikely. Well, it's true. Okay. Listen, can I talk to you later, like in about 15 and a bit years? Yeah, fine, whatever. God, so embarrassed, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Thanks, son. Thanks for the Happy Father's Day from the future. So there is a version of Luke that I hope I never meet in the future. Guys, welcome back from the sting. I didn't actually put any ad breaks in. I'm just breaking it up because I had to go pause. I heard the little man next door. And here he is, the man of the hour. Luke, do you want to say something? Your first podcast appearance? You just want to breathe heavily, is it? Okay. So I have him here in my hands now. He was doing a bit of crying. And now he's just lying down. in my arms with his eyes closed. But much like a dormant volcano, at any moment now he could erupt into crying and screaming. Now he might make a few squeaks. You might even hear a fart or two. So I'll hold him in my hands and I'll continue to talk about him while I gaze lovingly at his face, so serene. And you can hear his little, I'll put his face up very close to the microphone. That is the sound of a baby breathing. So there's some ASMR for you. Now, Cara was telling me about a dream she had. Oh, hello. And the dream was about a TV show. And the TV show was about... Oh, hello. It was about you, Luke. Well, possibly starring Luke. Well, it was a TV show called Baby Detective. Yeah. And... oh, hey, come on. It's not that bad an idea for a TV show. There's been worse. What about Boss Baby with Alec Baldwin? I know that wasn't a TV show, it was a movie, but still. Oh, really? You don't like it at all? Okay. Well, you could be in it. So it was a TV show called Baby Detective, where to catch a criminal baby, you need a baby detective. But the twist with this show, which I quite enjoyed, was in the dream, the show was a baby who was a detective solving, I don't know, baby crimes. People were studying counterfeit formula on street corners. Or there was like a milk burglar who was going in and pumping all the breast milk out of the mothers during the night. And we had to find him. And the baby detective's partner in the show was Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, I don't know if it was Jake Gyllenhaal playing himself or it was Jake Gyllenhaal acting as a cop. But it appeared like he was the only fully grown human in this show populated by babies. Kind of like the Pixar movie Cars, but with babies. So I quite enjoyed that. So this whole couple of weeks we've been just calling Luke the baby detective and trying to come up with plot lines and such, like the ones I just mentioned. Also, every song I'm singing now, I sing with a kind of a baby theme. I just take regular songs like all the single babies, all the single babies, all the single babies, all the single babies. Poo your pants up, poo, 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 and so on. And I think it calms Luke down. It certainly probably annoys everyone else. And maybe you as well, so I'm sorry that you had to hear that. Now, I'll tell you one more story, and then I'm probably going to have to go and change this guy's nappy. But, and that noise you hear is me rocking him back and forth in my arms. So, we went into the physio to have his hips checked. And no, I'm not talking about an old man. I'm talking about a young baby. So they were just checking his hips and checking his harness. And there was a couple there who, both of them were sort of short and wide is the best way I can say it. Roomy. And the male partner, it was a heteronormative couple, and they had they had a car seat, and the car seat was pink. It had like a fluffy pink sort of handle and a big pink bow, and the bottle that they were feeding the child in, I know, it was awful, had a pink rim on it, and then the soother that they had in the baby's mouth was like bejeweled and pink, and it was just a bit much. And I was kind of dying to look at the child and look at them. Oh, I know. And say, I was just hoping that I'd kind of catch their eye and then look down at the baby and go, oh, is it a boy or a girl? Yeah. All right, we're having fun. Look, I'm going to have to pause this and give this baby back to his mother. Okay, it's time for nappy time. And nappy time has been had, and with the magic of editing, I'm back in the room by myself, ready to finish my story of what I saw in the hospital. So yeah, that couple, their baby's name was Chantel. And how I knew their baby's name was I have an innate ability to look in a baby's face and know exactly what that baby's name is. Very good at guessing babies' names. Also, the father of the child had Chantel tattooed on his arm. And it was a very well healed tattoo as well. So maybe they had picked the name in advance or something. Or because the baby only looked maybe a month old. I don't know. Certainly a little bit bigger than Luke. But then again, Luke's only 2 weeks at that point. There was another baby in there as well who had a wonderful chunky head in him. He was a unit of a baby. And we were like chatting to the mother, and apparently he was like 4 pounds when he was born. But my God, was he making up for it. And he was doing this kind of, he was going like, and making his lips vibrate. And he had hair, but it was this weird kind of thin hair. It was like he'd gotten really cheap, really bad plugs. He flew out to, Albania to some doctor to get hair plugs, but they didn't go in right, and they didn't take in his scalp. So he had this kind of fuzzy hair, but you could definitely see the shape of his skull underneath it, almost like translucent hair. But he was cute and an absolute, you'd be kind of afraid of him, sort of unit of a child. And then there was another couple who had 4 kids, quadruplets, 2 boys and 2 girls, and half of them were asleep. And holy shit, we were just like, good God. And the mother looked like she hadn't had 4 kids, and they didn't look too tired. But I imagine you're kind of running on fumes a lot when you're a new parent. But 4 kids, I mean, like you have 1 and you have a discussion whether to have 2, and then you might say, well, maybe we'll have 3, but to like 4 straight away, it's like, whoa, that's maybe 2 too many than we were thinking of having. Again, I don't know what their situation was. But the couple with Chantel were on their phones constantly. Now, they weren't wearing masks, which annoyed me because, look, I don't care what you think about masks. If you're an anti-vaxxer or an anti-masker, like, even if you think they don't help with controlling the coronavirus, that they don't stop the spread or whatever, if it makes someone else feel at ease and feel safer, and it's not going to kill you, it's not going to suffocate you, and you're not going to, as some people stupidly believe, breathe in all your CO2 and die. It's not going to do those things. If it makes someone else feel better, then why not do it, and don't be a prick. But they were in a hospital without masks, and I was like, Now, we were sitting suitably far away from them, that it wasn't an issue. But also, just looking at them, they were on their phones, and number one, the woman, she kept getting notifications of messages, and like boop beep boop, boop beep boop. It kept going off, and I was like, mute your fucking notifications. Like who does that? 60-year-old women know how to mute their notifications. My mum knows how to mute her notifications on her phone. You're like, what? And then I saw the funniest thing where the man with Chantel on his arm, and he had this like perfectly sort of coiffured beard. He kind of looked like a fat Tony Stark, who'd also let his beard grow. So maybe not Tony Stark at all, but he looked like a baby. He looked like a big baby wearing a beard, and he was sending messages, voice notes to someone, but he was talking into the top of the phone where the speaker for listening is. And then when he was listening back to the messages, he was listening into the microphone at the bottom of the phone. So he had the phone arseways. And I was like, I'm surprised there's not a nappy on Chantel's head if he can't even know the top and tail of his mobile phone. And he was talking about bags as well. So I was like, is he talking about drugs there? What's going on? It was very confusing. And I was looking at him just going, well, you know, if he's a father and that kid is still alive, then maybe I can do this. Now, admittedly, that's a very low bar to reach. So maybe I shouldn't be comparing myself to Chantel's parents, who really have gone all in on the pink for a girl stuff. I'm not too mad on sort of pink stuff. I have learned one thing about boys. Boys love dinosaurs from the moment they're born. Dinosaurs and elephants. And girls love unicorns and such. The difference between boys and girls, I suppose. Girls love unicorns. Boys love dinosaurs. So boys, they both love kind of mythical creatures. But in the case of dinosaurs, they actually did exist. Or did they? Look, that's a separate podcast. So yeah, look, I don't mind being sleep deprived. We are in our third week. Apparently 6 weeks, Luke will start to kind of calm down. And it's just, sometimes it's hard to sleep during the day. If you're not used to cat napping, Cara's very good at cat napping. I'm trying to get better at it. I had a nice sleep yesterday except for like, an hour and a half. I felt an awful lot better. Because when you get sleep deprived, you just get sloppy, and you don't even get sloppy when you're handling a tiny human. And yeah, so it's been tiring, but it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to Luke being able to see beyond 8 inches, and also see in color, and also make out my face. And start to socially smile, where he's copying your smile. And I tell you, he's got a fair grip for just over 2-week-old, because he was grabbing onto my beard and pulling it, and I was trying to prise his fingers out of my fuzzy face, and it wasn't that easy. So fair play to him. He's a strong lad. We're very, very proud of him. And he doesn't have curly hair, which we knew he had hair from the last scan, but he doesn't have curly hair. He's got very fair, almost kind of blondie hair, which I know my older brother had blonde hair when he was younger. So, and there's blonde hair on Cara's side. Cara's mother had blonde hair. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's wonderful. It's really fucking tiring. And my advice, if you have kids and someone's going to have, someone you know is going to have kids, don't tell them how tired they're going to be. Don't make jokes about not being able to sleep. Bring them over a dinner. That's probably the most helpful thing you can do. Give them food so they don't have to spend what little energy they have cooking a dinner. That would be my advice. And that's all I'm ever going to talk about when it comes to babies. I know there will be more baby chat. Thank you for indulging me on this, the Day of Fathers. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for listening to the podcast. Moving forward, I'm probably going to have episodes out whenever the fuck I get a chance to record them. They mightn't be out on a Friday. They could be out on a Sunday. They could be out on a Tuesday. I will be recording extra episodes. I'm busy building my studio so I can do stuff like live gaming. I'm going to play through all my favorite games from childhood. That's coming up on Twitch. If I can figure out how to do any of those things, I'm going to try and make some little videos. As soon as I get my green screen sorted on the wall behind me, I'm also going to be recording, I think, some commentary tracks for some of my favorite movies. And now these things will be available. Some of them will be available on exclusively on Patreon. Some of them will be available first on Patreon. You'll get them weeks ahead of time, sometimes days ahead of time, sometimes, like this episode, because I have a newborn child, today at the same time as everyone else. But I do appreciate all my patrons, and thank you for your patience. And thanks to my long-term good patron pals, Kevin and Leah. Thank you to Jim from Scotland. Thanks Neil. Thanks Terry. And the rest. I can't remember. You know who you are. I'll give you individual shout-outs in a patron exclusive episode very shortly. So guys, I'm going to go have a shower. If the day is nice, we'll go for a walk. I hope you're all keeping well and safe and sound, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. Bye bye. Slán slán. Good luck to you now.